Thank you for joining us today for a parent engagement session hosted by the Department of Special Education. My name is Sarah Cannon. I'm the Director of Special Education for the Douglas County School District. I'm honored to kick off today's presentation. Today's session is scheduled for 1 hour and will focus on mental health and social emotional learning. This is a topic that doesn't just include our students with disabilities, but special education partners closely with our mental health team to support all learners. Today, our agenda will cover mental health support across the continuum, adjustments for remote learning services, next steps and resources, and we should have time at the end of the session to answer a few questions that were submitted. A full question and answer document will be posted on our website with all submitted questions and answers. The presenters for the session are Dr. Stephanie Crawford, Director of Mental Health, Jamie Montoya DeSchmidt, Prevention and SEL Coordinator, Lori Lacombe, our Healthy Schools Coordinator, Erin Ragon, our Counselor Lead, Zach Hess, our Director of Health, Wellness, and Prevention, and Ellen Kirchhoff, our School Psychologist and Social Worker Lead. Dr. Stephanie Crawford will begin.
Hello, I'm the Director of Mental Health, as Sarah said, and I'm so excited for the opportunity for myself and my teammates on our mental health team, as well as our health, wellness, and prevention team, to get to share some really great information with you today and to answer your questions. The Douglas County School District provides mental health services in alignment with the Colorado Department of Education to lower barriers to learning and behavior through prevention, assessment, consultation, intervention, and advocacy. We do this by working with students, their parents, educators, and other mental health service providers to help each child with developing their resilience, competence, and self-esteem. The overall goal is to improve the lives and learning of children and youth. DCSD believes that by increasing understanding and early identification of mental health needs, as well as improving access to services, this will lead to better educational outcomes for students. We can go to the next slide, please. In concert with each other, school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists team to provide prevention programming and a positive school culture and climate for all students, while also focusing on identifying and addressing the more intensive student needs required by those who are eligible for IEP programming and supports. Now, the foundational work starts with an awareness campaign that we do in our district, and we're also doing across the state, as well as mental health stigma reduction, and the acknowledgement of the whole child approach, in which physical and mental health go hand in hand, and that both are important to maintain and address when there is a concern. Universal social emotional skills are important to teach to all students and embed into their daily learning. As well, school staff focus, and it's very important that they do this work on creating a positive culture and climate for all. Now, all the supports and services are unique to each student. And so when we're looking at special education students, this is with the intent to provide the best possible services while also making sure that the student is in their classrooms to the maximum extent possible. Mental health providers use their expertise to determine whether a student is best served through indirect support. And this may look like educators who are provided a behavior plan to support the student within the classroom, or sometimes a student might need to build specific skills. And this would be best done with direct services and doing this outside of the classroom through individual or group counseling. Now, if a student has an intensive need that requires them to have mental health sessions outside of their classroom, the utmost consideration of the amount of time outside the classroom and the best way to teach the skill is considered. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jamie, our prevention coordinator.
Hi, my name is Jamie Montoya DeSchmidt. I'm the Prevention and SEL Coordinator for Douglas County Schools. And, you know, the research is clear. When youth recognize their needs, when they're connected to each other and to trusted adults, and practice social and emotional skills, they really are more equipped to engage in their own prevention advocacy. And so the work of our universal level prevention and SEL team is intended to provide a foundation really of skills for all students across our district, really to empower them to be emotionally and socially safe. And so our work is based in prevention and implementation science. And so simply said, our goal is to use what works to connect youth and adults. And so SEL, or social emotional learning, is really how children and adults learn to understand and manage emotions, set goals, show empathy for each other, establish positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And I can tell you, as a parent myself, those are the things that I think are most important for my young people as they go out in the world. And I would contend that you would agree with that. The prevention and social emotional learning team really is committed to supporting our staff and students within the Douglas County School District. And so some examples of programming that we support include the Sources of Strength program, which is a suicide prevention and wellness program. The Student Wellness and Prevention Framework, which supports schools to implement comprehensive bullying prevention, prevention and SEL consultation to support program implementation. So for example, the second step SEL curriculum and related professional development. And that's just an example of some of the things that we provide support for within our district. And now I'd like to introduce Lori Lacombe. She is our Healthy Schools Coordinator and one of my key collaborators in the work that we do at the universal level. Lori.
Thanks, Jamie. Hello, parents. I thought I would start with a brain booster, which is one thing that we bring to schools, all grade levels. So I'd like to do with you the ear and nose switch. Now, this is one you might know from your past, but it's funny. I go into a lot of classrooms and students they're not familiar with this one. So please go ahead and do this with me. So then it's really easy to do with our own children later on. But I want you to take your right hand and grab your nose. Just pinch it a little. Thank you, Jamie, for doing this with me. And then take your left arm and reach across your body and grab your ear. So it's right in front. There you go. Now just take a breath in. Obviously, don't pinch your nose too hard. Take a breath in. Exhale it out. And now let's switch at the count of 3. So we're going to switch which nose is pitching and which arm is in front. So 1, 2, 3, switch. 1, 2, 3, switch. Back to where we started. 1, 2, 3, switch. Doing great, Jamie. You're the only one I can see. 1, 2, 3, and switch. And then one more time. 1, 2, 3, switch. And now take another deep breath in. And then exhale, release your arms. Maybe shimmy your shoulders a little and welcome, welcome. So my name's Lori Lacombe. I'm the Healthy Schools Coordinator. And what we just did is we stimulated the corpus callosum of our brain, which helps our hemispheres communicate with one another a little more efficiently. So we like to bring these types of activities into our classrooms for learning. So our program is all based on the whole school community child model, which you can see is included in this slide. And there's 10 components of this framework. And the idea is that we want to meet the needs of the whole child, which Stephanie had brought up earlier. And our goal is that we want our students to feel safe. We want them to feel challenged, engaged, healthy, and supported. And what we do in our department is we work with schools. They have healthy school leaders, and their leaders, they will pick out one of these 10 components to focus on for the year. And it really depends on each school how they decide what component they want to work on. So maybe they want to work on bringing more physical activity, brain boosters into classrooms. Maybe they want to bring in more social emotional learning, nutrition, their physical environment they want to work on. It's really up to the school. And then what we do is we go in, my team and I will go and support these leaders in creating a school health improvement plan. And basically those are SMART goals that help schools identify what's your goal, how are you going to collect data, and what are the action steps to get you there? And we help schools get to their goal in any way we can. Maybe it's through professional development, through classroom visits, through our lending library, through our website, through materials they might need to fit the needs of their school health improvement plan. So I'll give you an example of one. We have this year's been a little different, right? Because everything's a little different this year. And we have been doing some physical activity shifts around the district. Because what we were finding is that the students were, the playgrounds were being cut into quadrants and you could only play in your quadrant. So we helped brainstorm with the team, well, what can we do? And they decided, let's get more staff out there and let's get a variety of tools that the students can use. So we bought them Frisbees and we brought them kickballs and we bought baskets, and then they move these baskets between the quadrants so the kids have different materials to play with during recess. Another popular one a lot of schools focus on is mindfulness, because mindfulness is a wonderful tool for self-regulation and self-awareness, which Jamie talked about with our social emotional learning, and that we really want to help teach students how to self-regulate and how to be more aware of their feelings and their responses and their reactions to the world around them. We also teach a lot about how the brain works. And so we've been working a lot on mindfulness over the last, 5-6 years. Our program's been around for 14 years in the district. We also provide self-care workshops for teachers. That could look at like journaling, it could look like mindfulness, it could look like movement, it could look like habit changing. So we do a lot of professional development. We also try and support people, all our schools and our staff and our parents as well through our website. And so parents, if you ever go under the Healthy Schools tab on dcsd.org, there is a tab just for parents, how to bring mindfulness, movement, and nutrition into your households, and a lot of materials that can help support that, videos and books and so forth. So that we spend a bit of time on. And finally, we also are engaged in a grant that we received from the district, and this again is for all students, is around comprehensive health education. CDE updated their standards last year, and so we wrote a grant to try and really standardize what health education looks like in Douglas County School District. And my last piece really leads to our next presenter today, is that Erin Reagan and we host a podcast every so often called 10 Meaningful Minutes, which you can find somewhere on the website. I'm not exact. Oh, it's actually on the Healthy Schools website. So you can find it there. But I'm excited and happy to introduce Erin Reagan, who's a wonderful asset to our Douglas County School District. So take it away, Erin.
Thanks so much, Lori, for the kind introduction. Again, my name is Erin Reagan, and I have the honor of serving as lead counselor for Douglas County School District. I want to thank all of you parents for taking the time to be here today. We really appreciate it. The first thing I want to talk about as a person who supports counselors is one of the questions I get is around what is the bar to becoming a counselor? What is required? And so I just want to share a little bit about that. Counselor training is really rigorous. It's a 60 to 66 credit graduate program. And to give you a sense of comparison, some of the other master's degrees that educators get are 30 credits. These programs are 2 to 3 years full-time, and they require a significant amount of commitment. Counselors are trained in therapy, safety protocols. They take courses on developmental of child and adolescent development over a lifespan. They take family systems courses. And then in addition to that, there is all of the school specific training that happens. So it's a high bar to become a counselor. There's a tremendous amount of time, energy, money, and sacrifice required in that. And so any counselor in any school has already demonstrated a high degree of intentionality and commitment just by virtue of the fact that they have earned a job in our district. Now, in terms of access to general education, all general education and students in special education have access to counselors. Counselors serve everyone. Depending on the level of school, and we have counselors in all elementary, middle, and high schools, the job is going to look different, but we often find that counselors deliver universal social emotional learning and supports to all students. Broadly speaking, counselors work in 3 big domains. So the first and foremost is the personal social domain. Counselors do everything they can to help students navigate their way through life. And they are available to any student to talk about their issues, if they have a concern, if they have a problem happening at school. This is what counselors are there for, to help. They are also trained in career counseling. And we see a lot more of this at the middle and the high school level, but it does happen at the elementary as well. And then, of course, postgraduate counseling, helping with college plans, helping identify apprenticeship programs or other training that a student might be interested in, depending on what they want after high school. So as I mentioned before, all students are assigned a counselor, even if they also get special education services. Many times counselors will create groups depending on the needs of their school. So these could be social emotional groups like divorce groups. They could be friendship groups. They could be academically focused and help students get organized. It really, again, is these groups are created in response to the needs of their individual school buildings. The other thing that counselors do a lot of is they serve as a liaison between parents, teachers, and administrators. Their core mission is to advocate for students. And so what happens a lot of times is a parent may have an issue and they don't know who to go to. Oftentimes a counselor is a really good starting point. With regard to the time that we have been in remote learning, one of the things that has happened is that counselors have started connection groups. These are groups that don't have a social emotional focus necessarily, but it could be something like an art group that is offered virtually, oftentimes after school, before school, or during lunch. The point of these groups is to get students connected, to connect to an adult, to connect to other students. We've seen some really innovative ideas around this. We had a middle school that showed ELF before school, and then there would be a discussion about that afterward. We've had groups that have talked about anime, focus on all kinds of stuff. So we're really trying to connect students, especially during remote learning, and look after their well-being. And so now I have the privilege of introducing Zach Hess. He is our Director of Health, Wellness, and Prevention.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I'm Zach Hess, I'm Director of Health, Wellness, and Prevention. One of the jobs that I do is to help schools understand better their organizational framework. So they're a multi-tiered system of supports. And within that system of supports, there's a process called Response to Intervention, or RTI. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. This is how one of the processes we use in the schools to determine when a student might need some additional support. So you've heard a lot about the universal supports in place and those people in place. And then when we identify that a student might need some additional support, then they can enter into this response to intervention. So that usually the team that makes up, the members that make up that team are going to be your administrators, teachers, your counselors, your psychs, and your social workers. And they're gonna lead a process where they bring a student into that discussion. They've got some data, what's going on in the classroom, and maybe they're struggling in a certain area, emotionally, academically, behaviorally, and they start to discuss some possible interventions to put in place that could help support this student. And so depending on the school, that process can meet every week, every month, but they meet regularly to talk about each and every one of those students that are struggling. They align all that work and all the supports they're trying to give those students. They align that to what's going on in the school, and they keep track of the outcomes for each of the students. So if a student is, for example, a student is responding well to some of those interventions that were put in place, and they continue on with those interventions. If they're responding really well, then that would be an indicator that that skill has been developed, and they would discontinue that intervention. Sometimes students still are struggling and they need more support. And that's when they start to look further into some assessment to determine whether or not they need to be on a 504 or on an IEP, which you'll hear about later on. Another targeted intervention that schools use is a home-based program. Some of you might have heard about that. And this is an intervention where students can get some additional support, some time, and sometimes a dedicated space where they can practice some of those skills that they're learning. Usually this is run by one specific individual or a team, and it allows a student to just find a place where they can practice, get ready to get back to learning, and then enter back into the classroom. All right, and I'm going to hand this back over to Aaron, and Aaron's going to talk a little bit more about the 504 process.
Thanks, Zach. So with regard to 504s, every school has a 504 coordinator. Depending on the particular school, that could be a counselor, it could be an assistant principal, it might even be a principal who kind of organizes and oversees 504 plans. The 504 process is one where there is a eligibility process that a student goes through to determine if a plan is necessary, and then what accommodations will best serve that student. A 504 plan is a living document. In other words, it is revisited ideally on an annual basis, and it can be revisited more frequently as the needs of the student change. And so that's kind of a broad overview. I would like to introduce Ellen Kirchhoff. Ellen is our lead for school psychologists and social workers, and she is amazing.
Thank you, Aaron. I am Aaron's counterpart and lead the psychologists or psychs and social workers in our district. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of our special education mental health supports. So targeted and intensive, or tier 2 and tier 3 mental health services are provided to students from early childhood to all the way through adulthood in some cases, or into adulthood, who are found eligible and require related services to have the means and necessary skills to promote the ability to cope with challenges in life. And that's last piece was a quote from the National Association of School Psychologists. So tier 2 and 3 services may include things like supporting students with a behavior intervention plan, where you target the specific behavior that might be challenging them in the classroom, consulting with others, and also with individual and group counseling. School psychologists and social workers offer cognitive and social emotional behavior assessment to identify strategies to assist students to overcome barriers to educational success. So to say a bit more about background and training, just since Erin brought that up with counselors, I thought it might be interesting for you to know what school psychologists and social workers go through. So school psychologists who have a specialist degree complete a 3-year program. They obtain a master's plus, so that includes 60 credit hours and a 1,200-hour internship. And then we also have school psychologists who have a doctorate degree, and they complete a 5-year program, which is 90 credit hours, and again, a 1,200-hour internship. And then school social workers in our district obtain a rigorous master's degree as well, consisting of 60 credit hours and another 1,200-hour internship. So psychologists and social workers provide evidence-based interventions to special education students, allowing them to develop skills needed to improve access to education and to improve their educational outcomes. So they use their advanced training to select the best type of skill building and counseling strategies to support each student. So for example, many skills are learned best by using cognitive behavioral strategies. In this kind of strategy, students may learn new ways to think about a situation, and then new coping skills or other ways to respond that they might not already have in their skill set. And then they'll also practice pro-social behaviors. So for the next slide, I'm going to hand it back to Stephanie Crawford, our mental health director, and she will pick up from here.
Thank you so much, Ellen. So when we're thinking about universal and targeted and intensive supports, many times the question is, what factors are used to determine who gets these mental health supports? And as we've talked about, really it starts with everyone getting universal supports, all students. But then as we go through and we have students who need a little more support, we look at a variety of factors. And we know that children come to school with many life factors, and that's what influences how they learn and socialize. And these factors can be both risk factors that indicate they might be susceptible to a difficulty, and also protective factors that they bring, such as a caring family and lots of support from friends and outside supports if they need it. So it's really important that families and schools partner together for the well-being of children. And parents often wonder, well, what signs should I look for in my child that might indicate a mental health concern? And then when do I ask for help from the school? So parents and staff need to monitor grades, attendance, social skills, behavior, any health complaints, and of course, engagement in school and engagement in the home life and engagement in any community activities, whether that be sports that they might be doing or scouts or maybe dance or karate, whatever they might be doing, and look at how are they functioning. When we are looking at whether a child might be at risk or is actually experiencing mental health concerns, we look at whether or not children's lives have disruptions or there's a delay in their age-appropriate thinking, behavior, social skills, and emotional regulation. And these disruptions are distressing to the child, and they interfere with their functioning at school and with their friends and with their family. Common concerns amongst children are anxiety, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism spectrum disorder, as well as depression and other mood disorders. There are other warning signs to look for in your children as well, including persistent sadness, avoiding or withdrawing from social activities, talking about or actually hurting themselves, talking about death, if they have extreme irritability, or if there are any other major changes in their behavior or their mood or their personality. Additionally, you might see changes in your child's eating and their sleeping habits. They might have new health concerns that they're bringing up to you. They might have difficulty concentrating and paying attention at school or when you're at home trying to give them directions. They'll have changes in their school performance or maybe changes in their other activities that we talked about, those sports and clubs. And sometimes kids also will avoid or miss school. So if you have a concern, make sure you talk to your school, including that teacher and the counselor, as Erin suggested. And you can also talk with your own physician and make sure there's no health concerns that might be happening in addition to any mental health concerns. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Ellen to talk to you a little bit more.
Thanks, Stephanie. So moderate needs students are sort of our mid-level needs students demonstrated to have moderate needs. They may receive direct mental health support inside or outside of the classroom, small group support, or indirect consultation to help collaborate with and support school staff. So to say a little more about the services psychologists and social workers may provide, there are indirect services. Those include consulting with staff, parents, outside service providers, if applicable. Our mental health providers may observe students in the classroom and take ABC data. And so that consists of antecedent and consequence data that, so basically what happens right before a behavior and right after a behavior occurs. They'll analyze the data and work with their team to refine interventions and to track progress. And, if there are changes needed in their interventions or a new intervention overall. They'll provide direct services, and those include things like individual, group, and whole class interventions. Might also include co-treatment with another provider, such as a speech language pathologist, to address overlap between disciplines. So our speech language pathologists often work with students on social thinking skills, but that's both a part of speech language and interpersonal interaction skills. So sometimes you'll see one of our mental health providers co-treat with a speech language pathologist in order to best address all aspects of that particular skill. They'll also collaborate with outside providers and families and ensure that the school's complementing and consistent with services provided by the outside therapist or psychiatrist. And then the teaming between the provider and the family is really super important so that the students having consistent strategies practiced at school and then reinforced both at school and at home. And it's especially important this year and at times when students may be learning remotely, so that parents and teachers can really work together to help make sure students get the best possible support. And then let's move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about center-based programming, and students who are determined to require support with more intensive needs, they might qualify for placement in an AN, affective needs, or significant support needs classroom. Students in center-based programs may continue to access general education with support as it best meets their individual needs. Center programs can provide more intensive building of skills through both whole classroom interventions and through interventions in small groups and individual formats. So just to say a little bit more about that, the student special education team will gather, analyze, and review information and data in order to determine the best level of programming for that student and the types of services they may need for their individual needs. The goal, as I think we said before, is to have the student included in the general education setting to the fullest extent possible. But care is also taken so that any direct services outside of the classroom are enough to build the skills needed, but not so much that students miss large amounts of instructional time in class. Each student's IEP, or individualized education program, is unique to them, including the goals developed, types of services needed, and the amount of time in general education versus center-based programs. So having the full picture of a student's functioning is really key to develop the best possible programming. This includes gathering information about educational, medical, family, and social functioning. Some students may respond best to remaining in their classrooms with just some indirect consultation services being provided. And other students may need to build specific skills and may need more direct services like counseling. For instance, they may be pulled from class for 30 minutes every week or every other week, depending on the skill being taught and the intensity of the need. And the end goal is that they have developed or acquired positive skills that they can independently demonstrate and then generalize back into other settings. And I am going to hand it back to Stephanie again.
All right. Well, being remote last spring and then servicing students in person through hybrid and e-learning has resulted in adjustments and new ways of providing mental health support and services to our students. Mental health providers have taken a lot of professional development, and they have access to tools and guidelines on how to develop and implement engaging and user-friendly online sessions for their students. So they've really taken a lot of care of, this is a new format for us all, and it can be fun. Kids love to show off their pets in their rooms, but there can be challenges in keeping that engagement. So they've really worked on making those activities that were live happen again on the online setting with the same kinds of games and different interactions, just kind of like Lori did with us. That was a really fun mindfulness brain break that we had there. Now, many, as Erin said, mental health providers and school teams have done a lot for connection and meeting needs when you're not in a building. And this has included schools making web pages. So the mental health providers, the counselors, school psychologists, and social workers have made their own mental health web pages, and families can get on there with their students and find videos, how-tos, games to play, and lessons for mental health activities that can be done at home. And if a student is undergoing an evaluation, many of the assessments can be done virtually as well. This includes interviews, observations, data collection, and filling out rating skills. If there's need for an in-person assessment, such as a cognitive assessment, then staff will work with parents to schedule an in-person session. If teachers and parents are observing that their child is having difficulties with virtual learning, the behavior and/or autism specialists that are assigned to that school can provide strategies, and they can coach the staff and the parents on how to use these strategies in the in-person classroom, the virtual classroom, and also at home. So don't forget to reach out and make sure you're getting all the supports that you might need for your student during this time. If you get on our website, our main website, on the Road to Return webpage, there's a whole section on e-learning mental health resources. And you look on there, we have many links to supporting learning at home that will give you a lot of tips and empower you as parents to advocate for your children. There's links to creating an emotionally safe place at home, how to engage your child while learning from home, positive behavior supports, how to handle meltdowns, and how to help with managing any stress that they might be feeling. And now I'm going to hand it over to Linda Neiman, one of our special education coordinators, to talk about resources.
I don't see Linda on right now. Next slide. These are some resources we have available for our families. And we'll, again, when this is a live presentation on our website, you'll be able to click on these links and get these resources. I think we have a little bit of time for Linda to go through some questions that were asked by parents.
Perfect. Can you hear me now? Perfect. Sorry about that. I was talking, but it wasn't working. Sorry about that. All right. So in this next section, we will be answering a few questions that were previously submitted by our parent community. So thank you so much for those of you who submitted questions for us. We're going to dive right into those. So parent question number 1. Do you foresee kids repeating this school year related to the lack of learning and social emotional difficulties with the pandemic? Do you have any advice for parents considering this option? Ellen's going to help us and answer some of those questions for you.
Thanks, Linda. So students generally will not be retained due to the pandemic. Douglas County School District used multi-tiered systems of support to develop both their hybrid and their e-learning plans in order to try to minimize any learning losses. For any school year, including this year and next, retention really has pros and cons. Research has not found increased achievement and more positive behavior and emotional outcomes for students who've been retained. So repeating a grade is an unlikely strategy to address concerns. So to say a little bit more, research from the past 100 years indicates that while some students may have short-term improvement in academics after being retained, long-term gains are not seen, and some students have long-term decreases in their achievement. Students who are retained due to missing large amount of schools may see benefits if they begin attending school on a regular basis, but students may have a disruption in their social interactions. They may begin disliking school and have lower self-esteem. The students who are retained are 5 to 11 times more likely to drop out of school. And this number actually increases if a student's retained more than once. So I guess the final thought is that if you have concerns about your child's learning, the best thing is to really please work with their teacher and your IEP team on strategies to be put in place to offset any of their learning needs. There are a variety of options in addition to retention to consider in order to provide individualized learning and behavior and emotional support for our students. The best way to support them is to identify the specific needs for that individual student and then develop targeted strategies to address each one of those needs. Thanks, Linda.
Great, thank you, Ellen. All right, so parent question number 2. What advice would you give our family for a child entering into kindergarten who will be receiving special education services? Stephanie, will you please share your thoughts on that?
Sure, Linda, thank you. I'd love to share my thoughts, and just to let you know, I've done this with my own child. So if you haven't already met with the kindergarten teacher and the rest of the school IEP team, it's highly recommended that you have a transition meeting and you schedule that this spring so that the staff at the school are familiar with your child's IEP and are ready to go that first day of kindergarten. During this transition meeting, it will be important to share information and collaborate around addressing your child's specific needs. This meeting is a great opportunity for the school staff to ask questions specific to your child and for you to share all your expert information with them. And also for you as the parent to ask questions about the classroom and the overall procedures of the school. And then depending on your child and their needs and their preferences, you could ask that your child get an opportunity to visit the school prior to the first day of class. So this can give your child and you an opportunity to go and look at the classroom that they'll actually be in. Maybe depending on when you go, the teacher might be there for them to meet while it's alone and comfortable. And you can look at the rest of the school too, including some really intriguing spaces to your kindergartner. I know that mine, having been in a small preschool, was super excited to see what the spaces look like at the big school. So taking a look at spaces such as the library, the gym, the lunchroom, and the playground. And so having an opportunity for your child and you and the school staff to get to know each other and review the plan will help you to have a really nice, smooth transition. And that familiarity that you may get from visiting the school and then having really great conversations over the summer about what to look forward to and how much fun they're going to have, it's going to really help your student and you feel comfortable. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. The third question that is next is, are there any summer programs available or any information on some of the available programming in our area? Which is a great question. Aaron's going to be able to share a few thoughts on that for us.
Thanks, Linda. And this is a question that resonates with me as well as the parent of a elementary aged kid. So special education students who qualify in any area may be offered ESY. That stands for Extended School Year Services. In addition, depending on what kind of summer program you're interested in, there is a lot of stuff available out in the community that really might appeal to what you're interested in. Many of the community mental health agencies offer summer programs, including individual and group options. And the Douglas County Youth Initiative offers opportunities for youth to connect both during the school year and during the summer.
Great, thank you, Aaron. Question number 4. Are there any respite services available to help us provide a more positive environment for our children? Ellen, would you like to share some thoughts in this area?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I really would, because needing respite is something that is really important, that people can get the support they need. So the answer is yes, there are community agencies that have respite available for families. Each agency will work with the family to determine if they might meet the criteria for their services. Many agencies provide both medical and non-medical care in the home, and some agencies will actually work with the family member to see if they might be eligible to become a certified nursing assistant or CNA and become an employee in order to get paid to provide some care for their child. Some agencies provide a break and an extra set of hands so that parents can have some time to focus on their own and the needs of some of their other family members. Also, depending on your needs and other ways, some families have found respite is to just go ahead and build a network with trusted friends or family so that they can trade off. If you think that you might benefit from some help in terms of respite, finding possibilities for agencies that may supply those kinds of services, you might wish to reach out to your school psychologist or social worker or even counselor for some good assistance in identifying what resources might be out there that might be helpful to you and your family.
Great, thank you, Ellen. It also looks like Chris told us that we have one hand raised that we might be able to answer a live question. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. You got Linda.
Okay. I think we have time for that. If Linda would like to ask her question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. It's extremely helpful to hear everything you have to offer. A couple of things before I forget, is there a way to watch this presentation again or to share it?
Yes, we will be posting we are recording the session right now, and we'll be posting it to our website.
Okay, thank you. How can we make sure between both the remote learning and then going back to hybrid learning, how can we ensure that the IEP is being followed or being fulfilled?
Great, thank you for that question. I'm going to turn it over to the panelists. Who would like to answer that question?
Yeah, I can answer the question unless Sarah wanted to answer as well.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Great. Yeah, I'll answer this question. I am like you, and I am a parent of a child with an IEP and want to make sure that he's doing well during this time of, as we've talked about, we've been in March all remote. We've had hybrid learning opportunities. We've been in person. We've had quarantines. And so it can be a lot for our students. The best thing that you can do, and what I'm doing for my child, is staying in constant communication with his IEP team. So I am emailing and checking in with his providers to see how it's going when we're at school, but also, even though when we've been at home, I can kind of listen in, I don't fully know exactly how it's going. And so I'm making sure I'm getting a lot of progress reporting from them. And then, when in doubt, ask for a meeting with your providers if you're not sure, to talk about that plan that we've had to adapt because of our different learning environments that we're going in and out of, and making sure that plan is addressing both when your student is in the classroom and when they're virtual. And there might be some different strategies depending on which setting they're in and some different needs. So make sure that if you have questions, if you have ideas, that you are communicating and collaborating and talking to your team. Feel empowered to reach out to them. And they like our engagement. They like it when we're involved and when we're giving them ideas, because we know our kids the best, and we can say, this is what I observe when they're at home, and this is what we talk about when they're at school, and then they come home and we go through the day. And then these are the insights that I have on how you can instruct my child best. But make sure that you feel good and comfortable to be that member of the IEP team, because as parents, we are also members of the IEP team, and we need to make sure we're giving good information and collaborating and asking questions when we need to. So I hope that helps you a little bit.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So I want to thank all of our parent and community participants today. I want to send a special thanks to our presenters today. The Department of Special Education is planning more parent engagement sessions for this year, following the schedule of every other month. Like I stated at the beginning of the session, we will post questions and answers on our website along with a recorded version of this session. The next parent engagement session is tentatively scheduled for March 23rd, and the Colorado Department of Education will join us on that day. On behalf of the Department of Special Education and our presenters, we enjoyed this opportunity to talk with you today about mental health and social emotional learning. We hope you have a good rest of your week.